You may have noticed that when I got up, my wife walked out of here. That's because she doesn't want to hear what I have to say. Yet. Next Saturday, our oldest daughter, Brenna, is marrying her partner of 12 years, Brady. And she called me up this summer and she said, "Dad, would you like to give a speech at the wedding?" And I said, "Brenna, do you want me to give a speech at the wedding?" And she said, "Of course." And I said, "Good, because I've been working on it for a year since you got engaged." Actually, I've been working on this speech for 40 years. 40 years ago, I was a student, just a kid in college, reading Kierkegaard. And it got to this part where he was talking about all this positive leap of faith stuff. And I was thinking about it, and I realized that regardless of what had happened to me up to that point in my life, I could decide what the rest of my life would be like. And in the next instant, I knew what I wanted more than anything else, and it was to be a dad. And then this curtain lifted in my mind, and I just saw my life unfold in front of me. And I started writing it down. I saw myself getting married, and I saw my wife and I have a little girl. And then I saw us buying a house. And then I imagined I would set this camera up on the corner of the house and focus it on the tree. And I'd set it up to take a picture every so often. And I put this vision away, and 10 years later I was married. And we had Brenna. And then we went looking for a house. And I pulled up to this house, and I knew this was the house. It looked like somebody had planted these trees in the 60s, so it would be ready for me in the 90s. It was surrounded by 5 giant fir trees, and in the front yard was this red plum that had a short trunk and 9 branches that stretched out over the yard. It's like we had this big red-purple umbrella. Brenna and I were raking leaves one day under that tree, and I did not appreciate the ratio of leaves to child butt. I thought it was big enough, and I tossed her into it, and she landed pretty hard, and she started crying. And it just crushed me. I gave her a big hug. And in that instant, I realized I wanted to, more than anything else, just to protect her from all of the pain of this life. And I knew right then that being a dad was going to be way harder than I thought. And there were Easter egg hunts and piñatas in the tree on birthdays and kids climbing the tree. And the next thing you know, she headed off to college. And I was digging through my stuff, and I found that vision I had written down. And I read through it, and it was so weird. As I read through it, I realized the house I had imagined was the house we bought. And the tree in the front yard was that plum tree. And the little girl in the story was Brenna. I could see her in that vision. And I never set up the camera because the camera was in my head. And I could see the movie playing of her growing up under that tree. And I'd like to believe that at the end of this life, when it's time to let go and I slip away, that those are the kinds of things that we see. Well, a few years ago, Brenna said, "Dad, I got to let you know, you're the only one that doesn't know this, but I got a tattoo." And I said, "What's the tattoo of?" And she said, "Well, it's of a branch, but kind of like just a twig. And it has red leaves on it and pink blossoms." And she said, "Dad, it's of the plum. It's a tattoo of the plum tree." I said, "Well, why did you get a tattoo of the plum tree?" She said, "Dad, growing up, I would have dreams of that plum tree. I had these dreams. Our family lived under the tree. And as long as we were under that tree, we were safe." Well, there's one more part of that vision I had. When I wrote it down that day, at the end of the vision, I saw a young man stepping into the frame with Brenna. And when I think of that vision now, I see Brady's face. And the thing that's strange is that it just feels like he's always been there. So here's to dreams coming true.